What is up, you guys? Welcome to another What's for Dinner, y'all. It is video number 3, I think. Very exciting. So, we're starting off with a homemade garlic bread and also a baked pasta dish. Both of these are from budgetbites.com. Mentioned them before, one of my very favorite food blogs. She has awesome recipes. Many of them are tried and true by me personally. I have never had a bad one. So, awesome place if you're looking for some inspiration. So, again, both of these recipes are from her blog. I'm starting off here making some homemade garlic bread. I don't know about y'all, but I typically take the lazy way out and I'll just buy the box of frozen garlic bread at the grocery store. But I saw this recipe and I said, let me try it out. Let's see what's going on. And totally worked great. Plus, it was definitely less expensive than buying the boxes at the store. Not that those are super expensive, but you get a lot less. And I used like an entire loaf of bread here, as you're about to see. And typically, I think I only get about half of this amount in the box. So I definitely think that this is a money saver. And it was really easy to make. And I did end up putting this in the freezer um, to use later. I had done this clip a little bit earlier before I did my pasta bake, and it was so easy. I just threw it in the toaster oven. You can also serve this up fresh, so it's really great just to have in the freezer, kind of waiting for you. Or, of course, making it up fresh. So I stirred up some butter, olive oil, salt, and some parsley and some garlic. Duh, it's garlic bread. So gotta have that. And I'm just slicing up this is actually an Italian loaf, and I'm just slicing that up, and I'm gonna spread that delicious garlic butter on top. And then I put it on a baking rack, which fit in my freezer, so I kind of flash freeze these separately so they wouldn't stick together. And then once they were frozen, I put them in a reusable bag, and they held up really well in the freezer. And just putting them in the toaster oven for a few minutes was just awesome. It was just like the freezer garlic bread you get at the store. So I definitely recommend this one. It was a great recipe. So next up, I am going to pair that freezer garlic bread with a baked spaghetti. And again, I sort of used that Budget Bites recipe. So she has a baked spaghetti with sausage. And what I ended up doing is switching that up a little bit just based on some ingredients that I had in the house. But I basically used her recipe as inspiration for like the baking instructions and kind of the amounts as well. So I'm gonna saute up some spinach. That's gonna be my veggie base for the pasta. And I'm just gonna heat that up. This was frozen spinach, so I've already thawed it, squeezed out most of the moisture, and then I'm just gonna give it a quick saute in the pan just to take away that additional moisture so that the sauce doesn't end up runny. After I've gotten most of the moisture out of my spinach, I'm going to add in some ham, which this is actually Canadian bacon, but close enough, which is going to be my substitute for the sausage. Again, just trying to use up some ingredients in my freezer. This had been in there for a while, so I decided to try it out, and it actually ended up being really good. I think my husband Brian actually liked this a little bit more than I did, but it was good, and again, an awesome way to use up some extra ingredients from your freezer. After this is all nice and sauteed up, everything is warm, I'm going to add in my sauces, and I did use two different sauces here to make kind of a vodka sauce or a rosé sauce. So I used one jar of Alfredo sauce, and this was kind of one of the smaller jars, and then I used a larger jar of marinara sauce. And that all mixed together is just like to me, it's like the perfect combo of creamy and tart, not too heavy like all Alfredo can be, but a little bit more rich than just like what a plain marinara can be. After I have that all stirred up, I'm going to season the sauce, and I'm basically adding a crap ton of Italian seasoning, some garlic powder, and some onion powder, and some pepper as well. I did not add any salt to this. The Canadian bacon that I used is pretty salty, so I did not want to oversalt this. And I did taste the sauce a little later, and I was really glad that I did not add any salt because there was plenty. So depending on what kind of meat you might be using, you may want to use a little salt. For me, I did not need any at all, which was great. So I'm just seasoning that up. I'm going to let it simmer for a little bit while my pasta finishes cooking. I did have my pasta cooking in the meantime while I was making this sauce. So it's you can kind of do that at the same time, and it really helps to cut down on the cook time here. Whenever your pasta is ready, it is time to add it to the sauce. Side note, did mention this earlier, you will need a fairly large saute pan to kind of fit this all in, or just plan on maybe doing this in a large bowl if you don't have a saute pan this large available. I'll link the one that I'm using here below. It is my absolute favorite. I use it almost every day. So if you're looking for a larger kind of high-sided saute pan, really recommend this one. So again, I'm just tossing that pasta in, making sure it is nice and combined, and getting ready to prep that for baking. Once that is all mixed up, you're going to want to pour that into a baking dish. This is a large Le Creuset casserole dish, worked really well. I'll link this down below as well. Again, one of my favorite kitchen items. And I've just poured my pasta in there. I did that off camera because that pan of pasta was so heavy, not meant for camera. So I'm now just taking some mozzarella and I'm going to sprinkle that pretty darn generously on top. You can, of course, adjust that to your taste, but in my world, more cheese is always better. So I'm just topping it off with that mozzarella. And you can really use any cheese that you want on top. You can kind of make this your own. If you prefer something different or you have something in your fridge or freezer that you've been trying to use up, a pasta bake is a great way to use that up. All these flavors, casseroles and pasta dishes that are baked, it really seems to take on a lot of different flavors and everything always seems to taste good together. So, and this is actually a great example. I'm using some cotija cheese, which is actually a Mexican cheese, but it's very similar to Parmesan. It's kind of a mild cheese. And I didn't feel like getting my Parmesan and my Parmesan grater out, so, and I've been trying to use this up, so I stuck this on top and it worked great. Here is the pasta bake after half an hour in a 350-degree oven. Came out bubbly and delicious. Definitely recommend this recipe. I did serve it alongside of that freezer garlic bread that I showed you how to make earlier. And our family is just two people, so this fed us for 3 dinners, and Brian does eat large portions, plus, I believe, an additional lunch left over. So this really does feed a crowd if you have a larger family at home. This really does feed a crowd if you have a larger family at home. Our next meal of the week was a salmon burger with french fries and a cucumber black bean salad. And I've got the ingredients here for my cucumber black bean salad. I did make that earlier in the day just so all the flavors could, get friendly and more delicious. So I am going to start up basically by just chopping up all the ingredients. I've got my corn and my black beans kind of draining there in the colander. And I also have, you can see in the back, I've got my red onions already sliced up and they are in a bowl of ice water. So if you tend to feel like the bite of red onion is a little too much for you, if you will let your onions soak in ice water for just a couple of minutes, maybe while you're getting the rest of your ingredients together, that will really cut down on the bite of the onion. So you'll get that great flavor without it being too overpowering. And this was a tip that I got again from Budget Bites. y'all are going to get tired of me talking about it. But in this recipe, she gave that tip, and I thought it was an awesome one because I really do enjoy red onion. But my husband does feel like the bite can be a little too much. So I felt like this really made the flavor a lot more mild, and it was much more enjoyable for everybody. So awesome tip. Now that we have all of our veggies chopped, I'm going to make the dressing for this. And the dressing is just olive oil, apple cider vinegar, cumin, garlic powder, salt, and pepper. And you're going to see that I clearly am not using measuring spoons here. I'm just kind of dumping stuff in. And to be honest, this is how I cook a lot of times. If you're less experienced, definitely follow the recipe below. I've got it linked if you're looking for measurements, but I'm just sort of dumping in um, everything in general quantities. And I also added extra cumin just for my taste. So, but this is a very forgiving salad. And you don't even have to use exactly the ingredients that she has listed. You can definitely substitute things, use things again that are in your freezer or sitting out on the counter, your great summer veggies. Just kind of put in here whatever you want. It's a great base to work off of, and the dressing really brings everything together. So I definitely recommend it. This was one of those great, refreshing summer salads. It was wonderful with the burgers, and we will definitely be making this again. Once I've got that salad all mixed, I'm going to stick it in the fridge. If you can make this ahead of time, that's great, but if not, just while you're cooking everything else, that's enough time to marinate. These are the salmon burgers that I use. They are from Kroger. They were pretty good. I would probably use a different brand next time. It had sort of an odd smoke flavor added to it. And then I did both sweet potato and waffle cut fries. I prefer sweet potato. Brian prefers waffle cut, so we both get what we want. And while these were cooking up, I decided to make a sriracha mayo to go with the burgers. I thought that would be a great sauce to go on top. And it's super easy. Just add a couple of tablespoons of mayo to a dish. And then you're going to squeeze in some sriracha. And you can really use as much sriracha as you'd like. If you like it spicier or less spicy, the mayo really cuts the spice. So even if you typically don't like spicy things, I think you should try this out. It's really not that bad. And of course, you can add more depending on that spice level that you want. So I didn't add too terribly much sriracha. Um, Brian likes spice, but he doesn't love the flavor of this, so I didn't make it too terribly spicy. I wanted it more of the creamy texture to come out here. So you can really make this however you prefer. So this ended up delicious. Definitely recommend it as a great topping for really any type of burger. This was great on the salmon burgers in particular, but this would go on top of any burger. And it was also a really great sauce to dip your fries in. So here are the final plates. You just witnessed me stealing a French fry from Brian's plate, but I'm not going to tell him. So I served the salmon burgers on some toasted buns with lettuce and tomato. I've got both kinds of fries here, and I've also got my side salad. You could put that salad on top of the burger if you wanted, but it was a little more messy than I wanted to deal with that day. So I just served it on the side. I've got that sriracha mayo on the burgers, and I did also use that as my fry dipping sauce too. And I'm stealing another French fry. I don't even know how many fries he ended up having. How many did I steal? Our third recipe for the week is slow cooker honey garlic pork chops. And I had a tough time finding a recipe for slow cooker pork chops that did not use canned condensed soup. I'm really not sure why. That seems to be very popular, but I was looking for a recipe that did not use condensed soup. So I came across this one, and I'll have that link down below. So I've got 6 bone-in pork chops, and you could use boneless if you can find those. I would go with thick cut also if you can find those. Mine were a little thinner, so I cooked those for about an hour less than the recipe recommended, since they were a little thinner. And I'm going to season those up with salt and pepper on both sides. You can sear these in a pan before you put them in your slow cooker, but I did not want to do that, so I just threw them in the slow cooker raw. They came out delicious. And then the sauce for this is just going to be garlic, ketchup, low sodium soy sauce, and honey. I used agave nectar because I just had it in my pantry. So you're basically just going to dump everything into your slow cooker, and you're going to cook that on low for about 4 hours. Now, like I said, I ended up cooking it for 3 because my pork chops were a little thinner. And then once those have cooked for 3 or 4 hours, you're going to add in some cornstarch and some water, like a slurry, just to thicken up that sauce. And you're going to let it cook for another hour just to let those pork chops get tender and absorb some of that sauce. And I served these up with some sauteed spinach. I just sauteed that up on the stove. It was fresh spinach, and I added in a little bit of cheese as well, and some roasted potatoes. I roasted those in the oven at 450 for 20 minutes, and I just put a bunch of seasoning on that, rosemary, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper, kind of the usuals. And this ended up being a great meal. I hope everybody enjoyed this week's What's for Dinner and got some recipe inspiration, and I will see y'all next week in the next video.